I'm happy to welcome Patrick McKenzie here today. This is actually his second talk today. First one was in Japanese, this one will be in English. I would describe Patrick as an engineer who learned how to do online marketing out of necessity. And he uses our products, so AdWords and search and so on. And I think it's a good opportunity for us because we can see how someone really uses our stuff and where it works well and where maybe we can improve things a little bit. All right, so with that, I'll turn it over to Patrick. And if we have time at the end, we'll do questions.
Oh. Hi, everybody. My name is Patrick McKenzie. Originally, I came from the engineering side of the fence. Can I just have a show of hands? Who's an engineer here? Okay. Who here is from marketing or sales? And anybody from, I think we had a lot of customer support folks at the last one. Anybody from customer support? Okay. So yeah, we get to talk more of everybody from engineers here. So I used to be an engineer. I was a salaryman at a big company in Nagoya. If anybody might have a hobby with cars, there's big companies in Nagoya. It was not that big company, but somewhere in their general orbit, right? And at one point in my career, I felt like I was kind of stagnating as an engineer. I wasn't really making any progress in my skill set. Building Java apps all day, yay fun. And not at a company that really valued software. And I thought, well, so if I want to learn something, I have to do something by myself. So I thought, okay, if I aren't making career progress at work, then I should run a small business on the side, and maybe that will teach me something about life, the universe, and everything. Maybe become a better engineer as a result of understanding that business aspect. And around the same time, I was working at a technology incubator in Gifu Prefecture. And Gifu Prefecture is a little bit rural. It doesn't have all that many people who speak English, but it does have a couple of hundred English teachers who came from America or England or whatever to teach English at prefectural schools. And they have a self-help mailing list for things like, if I have a problem with my landlord or if I don't know how to teach a lesson, what should we do? And so since I was working for the prefecture and often didn't have enough work, they said, well, babysit the email list, and if someone asks a question, try to answer it for them. And so the question comes in one day. I'm thinking of playing English bingo with my class tomorrow, and I don't want to spend the next hour writing bingo cards by hand. So is there a better way to make bingo cards? I'm thinking, this is right up my alley. I open up hit reply to the email, and I say, there's this website, www.google.com. If you type in bingo cards into it and hit enter, you'll get a list of 10 blue links. And if you click on that top link, you'll get something that makes bingo cards for you. Hit send, yeah, I accomplished something for the prefecture today. And I get back an email 5 minutes later, yeah, dummy, I tried that. But nothing works. And so I checked the list of search results, and indeed, nothing worked for a teacher. You have to manually make all the cards, even with the specialized bingo card creation software that existed. So I thought, hey, well, maybe I should make something for this. So I asked my bosses and got their okay, and created the world's most terrible Java swing app. This is actually the better version, but it was a swing app that just dropped a directory full of HTML pages, which you had to select all in Explorer and hit Control P, and then Internet Explorer would print them all out to your printer. And it would take bingo card creation from an hour-long process to a 5-minute-long process. So I drop an email to this list of 200 people in Gifu Prefecture and say, hey guys, so there's this .jar file. You don't have to know what a .jar file is. That's cool. Just download it and click it and do the stuff, and then hit Control P. You'll get lots of bingo cards, and you won't spend so much time with a straight edge trying to make them. And so I dropped that to 200 people, go home for the day, come back the next morning, and I had 60 emails in my inbox. And 30 of them said, this is the best thing ever. You've saved my life. I love you forever. Let me buy you a beer sometime. And 30 of them said, this sucks. I can't get it to use on my machine. What is Java? Can't use it on my machine. What the heck is Java anyhow? And why do I need a JRE? And so when I was thinking that month, what should I do for a business thing? I thought, well, if 200 people in Gifu are that passionate about bingo cards, that's something that I made in 3 hours would get 60 responses in a day. Maybe there's a business in there. So I did what any engineer would do. Okay, I'm making a business. I need a website. And so I made a website in Notepad because I didn't understand any way to make web pages other than in Notepad and static HTML at the time. And threw it up on the internet. Okay, now I need to get people to visit the website. How do I do that? And here's the problem where I'm an engineer and I have no effing clue how marketing works. So I've been reading a little on the internet in my often free days at the technology incubator, and I'd heard about this SEO concept, search engine optimization. You do some magic and the Googles love you. This is just an FYI. A lot of my customers call your product the Googles. Like I was on, or the internet entirely, the Googles. So I was on the Googles earlier today. I found your website on the Googles. I found your email address on the Googles. I found your email site on the Googles, etc. I love talking to customers. Anyhow, so I put it on the Googles. And I was wondering, well, how do I get people to come visit it? And I had this idea from reading about SEO that it was wickedly complicated. But the one thing I could wrap my head around was that if there was a hole in the internet and you fill that hole, then Google should love you. And so, yeah, here's my problem as a businessman. How do I get people to come to the website? After I get them in the website, how do I get them to download the trial of my software? After they get the trial of the software, how do I get them to actually pay me money? Starting with organic SEO as a way to get them to my website. So the hole in the internet that I thought of, if you're an English teacher, you peripherally know the existence of something called the Dolch sight words. They're the first 200 or so words you need to teach a beginning reader in English. Like the Japanese English class, you start with the sentence, "This is a pen. Are you a boy? No, I am a girl." And boy, pen, girl is these things are like Dolch sight words for preschool class. And teachers know that there exists in the world this thing called the Dolch sight words that Edmund Dolch wrote about in a book 70 years ago. And they know that there exist 5 lists broken down by grade level. They don't know what those words actually are, but they want to teach them anyhow. So they go to their local Googles, and they type in Dolch sight words. And in 2006, when I was starting my business, they got a bunch of pages that said, there exists something called the Dolch sight words. And so I went to the library, found a library that had 70-year-old books on English pedagogy, flipped to the chapter with the lists, wrote them up, put them on a web page. And I thought, well, if you're looking for the Dolch sight words, you are almost certainly an English teacher. You are almost certainly trying to teach them, so I'll give you an activity, Dolch sight words bingo. And if you want Dolch sight words bingo and many other bingo things too, download Bingo Card Creator. That actually worked pretty well. So this is the 2010 results. So 4 or 5 years after I wrote these 2 web pages, Dolch sight word lists and Dolch sight word bingo cards in Notepad, and took 2 hours, they were still getting like 16,000 visits a year. And that was literally my marketing for like the first year, just Dolch sight words bingo. Every customer I got was looking for Dolch sight words lists or Dolch sight words bingo cards. So this sounds pretty easy. Like, I'm an engineer, I understand nothing in marketing. I, clued in on this pretty quickly. Why don't all businesses do this? So I do consulting with American businesses, mostly software companies in like the, tens of millions of dollars of revenue a year region. And they often think peripherally, we want to do this SEO stuff. It should be pretty easy. We make, software that improves the lives of thousands of people, but we just totally don't get this. And why don't they get it? Well, how do we know what people really need? How do we phrase like, what's the difference in the way we see the value that we're creating, the way our customers see the hole in their life that gets filled by what we create? Like if you create, one of my customers has bug management software. People don't necessarily go search for bug management software. They search for things like, whatever inadequacy they're finding in their current solution, like say tracking bugs in a CSV file. Seems to not scale after a certain point. So they might search scalable bug stuff. Yeah. This is especially common with non-technical customers. They don't search for bingo card creation software because they don't know that that exists or that software will generally exist to solve the problem. They'll just describe their problem. Bingo cards take too long to make. How do I make bingo cards? Is there a bingo card template I can download? ? And then after you know that these needs exist, how do you create content that's responsive to them? Which is, counterintuitive for a lot of engineering-focused companies, to say the least. After you've invested in understanding users' needs and creating content that's responsive to them, can you measure, can you track to see that, we spent $10,000 on this campaign or $100,000 on this content creation? Is it going to create $200,000 of sales or not? And if this is going to be a major strategic priority for us, is this more important than improving the product or working on other advertising, other marketing things that we could be doing? But yeah, 16,000 visits in the first year. So people who have some inclination of, how business on the internet works, like I tell teachers, I got 16,000 visits to adult site words, and they're like, 16,000, big number. But you guys probably know that 16,000 is not a really big number on the internet. And monetization models aside, 16,000 probably is not going to, provide you for enough food to eat, even in Ogaki where things are much cheaper than Tokyo. But I thought, well, if one lesson that you can teach with bingo cards is like 16,000, maybe if there were 2 lessons, it would be like 30,000 or so. And if you can do 2 lessons, why not do 100 lessons? And if you can do 100 lessons, ... Is there a way to do content creation in a scalable manner? SaaS engineers love scalability. So I broke away from my let's make all the web pages in Notepad by hand and taught myself Ruby on Rails, and then just made a template with a little baby's first CMS backing it. This is probably something a Google intern could grind out in like an hour. It only took me a week. And so the CMS, automatically creates a bingo card image and a downloadable PDF file that they can sample with, and then a thing that will drop them into the free trial version. And some explanation of how they use this to teach a lesson on whatever the lesson for the day is. American presidents, prefectures of Japan, all the numbers in Spanish. And so I got a freelancer to do this for me in my CMS and made 942 activities like this. And this works out very, very well, by the way. 5 years later, this single idea is half of my business. It drives almost all of my organic SEO, just creating niche content, which in a way that respects users and that actually helps them out, like fixes one laser focused need of them. So if you have a laser focused need for teaching a lesson about the countries of for the countries of Latin America tomorrow, then Latin American bingo cards, here, click here, you can print them out in like 5 minutes or less. Really helps them. So this sounds pretty simple. Why don't people actually do it? Well, there's these problems like how do I find hundreds of topics to write on? If you're a company that sells like bug tracking software. This is like direct quote from customer. How much can you actually say about bug tracking software? There's bugs, you track them at the end. And there's, ways around that, but there's not ways that they'll teach you in college around that. And there's not a big book of here's the ways to do, variations on a theme in a way that maintains quality and doesn't bore you to death. These are difficult problems for businesses to actually get their head around. Actually creating hundreds of articles, hundreds of, useful pieces of pillar content on your website takes a whole lot of time. Most businesses, that trades off with stuff that the people could actually otherwise be doing. Like if you run a hair salon and you're not actually cutting hair, the business is like losing money, right? So if you tell someone who runs a hair salon, you should really be writing articles about every possible style of hair cutting that you could actually think of. Then every time they write an article about hair cutting, that's hair that they aren't actually like cutting. That's revenue they're not making. So you need to be able to sell it to them, yeah, this will actually help you. And the level of sophistication they need to track that is kind of high. I'm a programmer. I can write a CMS in a week, no problem. If you run a hair salon, you might not exactly be comfortable with dropping into Ruby on Rails in a shell and banging out a CMS and then deploying that to your VPS. To put it mildly, even very engineering-focused companies often have a finite amount of engineering resources, and they've devoted most of it to the product. And they don't want to spend large amounts on engineering that would improve their marketing outcomes without being told that it's actually going to work. And then in terms of process, how do you monitor this scalable content creation or this SEO initiative? How do you track it down to, okay, we spent $100,000 on this, but we had $200,000 of sales, so yay. And there's ways around this. Put Google Analytics on your website. That gets you like 1% of the way to a successful solution. And even that very, very, everybody in here knows that exists thing is absolute magic to some people who you would assume would already know it. I've gone into customers that have, tens of millions of dollars of sales every year consummated through a website. I say, what is your existing analytics solution? I say, what? How many people came to your website yesterday? I don't know. Supposing you wanted to know, how would you figure that out? Well, I could probably like do something with the Apache log. Okay, does someone actually do something with the Apache log on a regular basis? No, just not on the radar screen for something that should matter to them. Who knows who Aaron Wall is? He's like a SEO in America. He's kind of big in the education about SEO space. The number one challenge with SEO is that it's getting so complicated. There's so many moving parts to the puzzle. You have to understand the engineering aspect, the marketing aspect, the PR aspect. You have to understand what a link is, how to get it, which links count, how to find keywords, how to write content. You can study this for years and not be an expert at it. And so it's getting to the point where self-directed study for years can make you pretty decent at SEO. But if you own a hair salon or a restaurant or a software company that does $20 million a year of revenue, it might not be possible to get to that point of expertise by yourself. This is a problem that repeatedly bites people on the hindquarters. And then they need to hire out for expertise, and then they get into the SEO as a market for lemons kind of dilemma, where if you don't know enough about SEO to implement it for yourself, how do you determine that some outside provider is going to be a good and effective use of your money versus some scam artist who is going to spam up the internet and get your site blocked in Google? My customers routinely say things like this. We are spending $100,000 a month on Google AdWords, but we can't find the money to budget for SEO, which always is it confuses me, but it's a real thing in larger organizations when they have turf wars between various departments and someone already has their pile of money, but there's no additional pile of money that can be found. They don't have the time or the budget or the expertise to start working on it. The baseline level of competence that you have to have for working on SEO is gigantic. You need to, the word CMS can't scare you. You have to understand things about metrics and analytics and tracking things on the internet. You have to have a good mental model of how funnels work, which we'll be talking about later. There's hundreds of little individual micro subjects within SEO that you could talk about. Which links matter? How does it interplay with the social strategy? How do you do PR in such a way that you get SEO benefits out of it? And it's very difficult to start from square one. Where do you start? What's the one thing, if your business had previously zero investment in SEO, what's the first thing you could do that would provide some quantum of value to the business? I have good answers for that, but I hope I have good answers. There's many of my clients who if they had $100,000 to spend on SEO today, would have no clue what the first thing to do is. And many of them would not have a good answer of who to pay to find that out. And it's hard to draw a straight line causality between a particular investment in SEO and a particular business outcome, which makes the case for investing in it very difficult for many businesses. Speculative investment is kind of difficult, especially in this economy. Okay, so I said half of my revenue comes from from organic SEO. The other half comes from Google AdWords. Thanks, guys. I'm a big fan. Qualified. We'll get to the qualifications later. I wrote this on my blog a couple of years ago. It's been 20 plus people have asked me for permission to reprint it in a journal article or a book or a blog post or something. AdWords is a very difficult product to use. Can I just have a show of hands? Who here has used AdWords? You pushed a button in the interface at some point or another? Okay, most people. Who here has used AdWords to accomplish a business result that mattered to them? Okay, so two-ish. Has anyone ever, the success of your AdWords campaign determines whether you eat? Nobody. So I quit my day job at the point where my business revenues were just about approximating my, profits were just about approximating my salary. And if half of my revenues come from AdWords, a emergency in my AdWords account is literally up there with I lose my rent check in terms of life impact to me. I know some companies in America are so dependent on their AdWords that a a 20% blip in our AdWords performance means somebody has to get laid off because we won't have the money to make payroll. Really big issue. And well, it's important that you guys, as the folks who are on the AdWords product and engineering teams, understand that, and that, something that in the scale of like by your scales, a problem with 0.01% of accounts, it's bad, but it's not like P0 or whatever the drop everything, get it fixed is. But the smallest possible problem in AdWords applied to someone's account could mean that, some family has to apply for unemployment. I would always keep that one in mind when speaking about it. So getting away from the jokes about how difficult it is, here's what you actually need to do to have success with AdWords. You need to identify your keywords, list them up, have a bidding strategy about them. You need to craft text ads, which is text ads are this thing that no one will teach you how to do. There's no class in university you can take on how to write an effective text ad 101. It's absolutely different from any other form of copywriting or marketing. And there's huge differences in performance between text ads that look very, very similar to each other. You have to kind of figure that out and muddle through it. You need to send people to landing pages. Many people don't understand that landing pages are really important. I didn't for my first 3 years of using AdWords. There's customers who spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on AdWords who all the landing pages have the corporate homepage. Ask, why is that? Well, what's a better way to set it up? You set them up, to landing pages which are specific to each ad that you put on that are very specific to a particular user need, and you focus that by doing focused ad groups, and that way you have a scent between the whole interaction, and it's just like, what? Okay, so when I started doing that, I started paying 1/3 as much for ads and got twice as much revenue out of it. They're like, oh, that sounds good. But, you can spend millions of dollars on AdWords and not have anyone pull you aside and say, hey, the way the world works is you really need landing pages. And you need to iterate on them. Here's another way the world works things. Like, many people will dump people directly into, you were searching for bug software. We have it. Why don't you buy it today? Which is not the world's most effective way to make a sale, particularly for things that require a bit of thought. So most of the effective AdWords advertisers I know, the first step that they try to get from you is permission to contact you in the future. Like, get your email address, and in return for a 3-page white paper which we wrote about this subject, we'll get your email address, we'll deliver you the link, and you'll sign up for our weekly mailing list. And then 3 days later they'll say, hey, you were looking for a white paper about blah a few days ago. We have this quick start guide to the field of blah created by our industry expert. Why don't you take a look at it? And then a week after that, hey, remember that blah you were looking at last week? We'd love to set you up with a free trial account. If you have any questions, you can call our customer support staff, or you can click right here, do a self-service free trial. And then over the weeks, you gradually build up their trust in you as a trusted provider of information about blah. And then you start asking for sale, or asking for, kind of higher touch conversions. Like, can we talk to, can we actually put our sales rep on the phone with one of your decision makers to talk about your needs for this? Then after you get permission to contact someone and start that drip marketing, is what it's called, you have to actually convert them into a paying customer. And even after you figured out how to do all of these things, you have to iterate like crazy, because often your AdWords won't start profitable, even if you get everything in place for it to theoretically be profitable. I spent a year trying to crack the code, figure out a way to spend $1 and get at least $1 in marginal revenue as a result of that spend. And you have to keep doing this as a process, because your competitors will keep doing it as a process. And if you don't continually monitor and improve, then an AdWords strategy that was productive and profitable a year and a half ago may no longer be profitable, and you might not even notice. Happened to some of my customers. Not a happy thing when someone said, what happened to the last $600,000 of AdWords we spent? Oh, it brought in $300,000 of sales. So here's my personal AdWords history. I started back in 2006. I was spending about $1 a day with the goal not to make money, but just not to lose so much, and to try to figure out, how does this system actually work? I very quickly turned off the content network because I had a feeling after reading about it that the content network was a hive of scum and villainy, and that it was just made for AdSense websites and a bunch of spam. And a friend of mine who was in a related language learning field said, the AdWords content network is a hive of scum and villainy, but that's only like 80% of it. The other 20% is total gold. You should be focusing your attention on that 20%. And I said, from anyone else that would sound like total BS, but I trust you personally. So I will try this. And I spent summer of 2007, I would get up every day and check my AdWords placement report for what websites did I put ads on my last day. And I would play whack-a-mole with like site exclusion. I never want to place ads on this spam site again. ... I did this for 20 minutes every day. And this is, a terrible use of my time. Then Conversion Optimizer came out. And so raise your hand if you know what Conversion Optimizer is. Okay, so Conversion Optimizer is this magic algorithmic pixie dust that you can like sprinkle on your AdWords account. And rather than you controlling bids on a per keyword or per website level, which is the default AdWords setting, it will automatically bias your bids up for keywords or websites that send you traffic that converts, and automatically bias your bids down for everything else. So if you get your ad placed on a valueless spam site that doesn't send traffic that converts, Conversion Optimizer will find within a few clicks that people don't convert when they come from that website. It will bias your bid to something close to 0, and you'll never be seen on that site again. If, on the other hand, like one of your competitors puts ads on their website, happens to me all the time, someone who is in the process of using a bingo card creation software is a really good prospect for bingo card creation software. So ads on competitors' websites tend to work very, very well for me. So it gradually biases my bids up on those sites, so I get a larger portion of their inventory. This revolutionized both the use of my use of AdWords and my business. My spend went up by a factor of 2, and my sales went up by like a factor of 4. And within like a couple of weeks of Content Optimizer being launched, like if you Googled, Conversion Optimizer, if you Googled Google Conversion Optimizer, like results 1 and 2 were google.com, and result number 3 was my blog saying it was the best thing since sliced bread. And then I got contacted by the Google head office, and it's like, hey, will you write a white paper on this? And that contact was actually a phone call. I get a phone call in the middle of the night in Japan. Excuse me, can you put me on with the CEO? One moment, please. That made me very, very happy. Anyhow, so made money. I had some problems with Google AdWords. I'll talk about them later in a bit of depth. It's not a happy product when you're having problems. Problems got fixed eventually, made more money. So at the moment, pretty happy. So Google AdWords is kind of hard to understand if you're not like building it every day. So what do you need to do to succeed in Google AdWords? Well, you need to write ads that have a high CS, optimize for your CPC, you get your CPA less than the LTV of the customer, and boom, you're golden. This is like Greek to most of the people who actually have to use the product on a day-to-day basis. And so one of the things that might be wonderful for development is creating things like, say, Conversion Optimizer. Conversion Optimizer, you have to start looking at your like per site or per keyword conversion rates without Conversion Optimizer. With Conversion Optimizer, that task is no longer on your to-do list. You don't even have to know it exists. So it makes the product transformatively easier to use. Any feature that you could reduce in it, that you could like add to AdWords that took one or more of these crazy acronyms and took it off the list of things that the customer had to use is a huge win for you. So here's a typical day in the life of an English teacher. She goes to Google, the Googles, sorry. There are, funny side note, there are the blue Googles and the green Googles. They are physically distinct from each other. The blue Googles is the one at work, the green Googles is the one at school, at home. I think one of them is MSN and one of them is actually you, but interrogating customers' mental models of the world takes a lot of time. Anyhow, so she might be at the green Googles one day and type in how to make bingo cards. And then she gets sent to a content site, like say eHow, for their how to make bingo cards article. And then somewhere way down the page, which is festooned with ads, there's one little ad for Bingo Card Creator. This little ad on this one page cost me like $200 last year and brought in like $400 or $500 of sales or something. So they click on that. They come to a landing page. Since I'm kind of engineering, this landing page is a little more sophisticated than most on the internet in that it tries to make a guess of what would be the most useful content I have on my website and then dynamically creates a landing page based on that. So right now, if you were to click on it and it didn't know anything else about you from your referring website, it would assume that you're probably doing a back-to-school bingo activity. So there would be a back-to-school bingo activity here and some text to get you to sign up for the free trial down here. And there's an A/B test going at the moment, so you can't see it, but usually I ask for permission to send you email about your back-to-school bingo cards. And here's the magic AdWords math that you have to really understand in your bones to make it work for you. I pay 8 cents per click. 28% of the people convert to the free trial when they see that landing page. The other 72% bounce, and I never get to talk to them again until they click on my ad again. So my cost per acquisition for a free trial of the software is 29 cents. 1.1% of free trials will convert into a purchased version of the product, which means that this is for this August. So that means I pay $26 for a sale of a product that gets me $28 for gross revenue, which means I'm like happy, but only like a little bit happy. But that's kind of because seasonality of teaching supplies is not so great in summer months. Typically, it's more like I pay you guys $15 for a $30 sale, which I'm happy. I'd be happier if I was like paying you like $1.50 for a $30 sale, but I'm not quitting my AdWords campaign anytime soon on that. One of the key things to notice, which we'll talk about when we get to funnels, is that this is sort of multiplicatively effective in that these steps are not like there's often no causational relationship between them. So this was 20% several years ago before I started working on that landing page, and increasing it from 20% to 28% kind of increases my bottom line straight by 40%. That's a little hand wavy, but it's broadly effective and broadly accurate. And so you go to companies and say, hey, if your $20 million company would just spend a couple hours redoing your landing pages and make it 40% more effective by, say, I don't know, dropping this garish logo here, you could potentially increase your bottom line by a couple $1 million. They're like, oh, BS. And then you have to kind of sell them on this whole notion of, we can make a testing company and a testing culture in your company too, and you will have actual stats that back this up. We'll talk about that later. So why is this hard for people? Well, so particularly for small businesses, if you run a restaurant or a massage therapy practice or a SAT coaching or Eikaiwa Juku in Japan, this might be a level of mathematics a little higher than you're used to, which is kind of sad but very true. So what's the difference between a 20% conversion rate and a 28% conversion rate? And a lot of people are going to their mental model of how the world works is that's like your sales go up by 8%. No, it's like sales go up by 40%. It's a very important difference. And I hate to say that, it's Google's responsibility to raise the world's understanding of like 6th grade mathematics, but if you were able to, it would make you billions of dollars. So other hard stuff. You need to have a clear understanding of what a funnel is. We're going to talk about that in a little. You need to be able to draw a causational line between I spent money on AdWords and I got sales. This is actually kind of difficult. I'll tell you about one reason why in a minute. And you need to be able to track average customer lifetime value well. This is a hard concept for a lot of people. So I've got like some weird hobbies. One of them is just talking to businesses that I do business with and just asking them about, hey, I'm interested in business in general. Why don't you tell me about the business of running a sushi shop? And so I ask my sushi chef guy who runs the sushi shop, hey, think of your like great customers. How much sushi do you sell them in a year? It's like, well, you're a good customer. You come in like once a week and you order the same thing every time and it costs 1,200 yen. So I sell you, don't know. And there's a lot of companies, including some companies you would assume to be sophisticated, like sell enterprise software, who couldn't tell you if you went up to their CEO or head of marketing today, what is that? Like, if you get someone signed up for your SaaS, what is the lifetime value of that customer? Don't know. It's more than $300. It's probably less than 30,000. Well, if it's like $300, you can't afford to spend $5,000 on customer acquisition. But if it's $25,000, then you should be spending that. Like, we should go to Bank of America right now and borrow all the money we can and spend $5,000 to acquire a customer. Someone is attributing sales hard. Who here has heard of the distinction between last click tracking, I don't do English, and first click tracking? So this is somewhere buried deep in the recesses of the Google Analytics and Google AdWords documentation. They will explain you the difference between these two things, and it's kind of key. If someone searches for, like, back to school bingo and comes to my site via the organic search results and signs up for a free trial and is happily using it every day for 2 weeks, and because, like all non-technical customers, they understand their relationship to the internet is I start on the Googles, I type in what I want, I get there. When they're coming back to Bingo Card Creator, they type in Bingo Card Creator into their Googles. And they come to this page. And you can't see the subtle pink highlighting here, but there is subtle pink highlighting on this first result, which is the one people generally click on. Who here knows what the subtle pink highlighting on our search result page means? Can I just have a show of hands? Okay, so we actually have hands here. If you ask 1,000 English teachers, I guarantee you that not one will be able to tell you that this means that it's an ad. But about 30% of the people who, like, click on a result for a search result for Bingo Card Creator and click on an AdWords ad already have an account on the system for me. And AdWords uses what's called last click tracking or last click attribution, which means that when I look at my Google AdWords report, if someone has already been converted by, like, an organic search campaign, but they later come and click on an AdWords ad anyhow, and that's their last one prior to purchasing the software, AdWords will say, yay, that's a win for AdWords. Whereas business-wise, for me, that isn't, like, I can't account that as a win for AdWords because I can't scale that. Like, spending more money on that channel does not actually result in more sales for me. It's just kind of a pure cost that I leak to you guys by, bidding on my own brand name here. The reason I bid on my own brand name is I would sure hate for a competitor to be right here. So, like, just this August, like, AdWords reported 54 sales, and if you go by first click tracking, just the first time someone hears about Bingo Card Creator trying to create an account, and had to do homebrew programming for this, it was only 16. It's still profitable at 16, but I've been at customers where, you tell them, hey, this distinction exists, and then break out the numbers for them. It's like, you thought you were getting a 20% profit margin on your AdWords campaign, but surprise, it's actually negative 15. That is not, like, when I give someone results like that, do you think their AdWords spend goes up the next month or down the next month? Yeah, they're not happy. So you're not happy. Thank you. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to try to get more of the presentation in this time. Sometimes AdWords has, like, problems like all software, and traditionally, and this is changing recently, traditionally when AdWords has a problem, you, like, end up in a Kafkaesque nightmare. And I say that as, like, one of your biggest fans. But, like, 2 years ago, AdWords just suddenly turned off for me. My ads didn't show. And I do the automated online diagnostic, and they say you don't have a credit card attached to your account. Check the billing stuff. No, really do. You billed me twice this week. You've billed $20,000 on the same card. Nothing has changed about the card. Call the bank. The bank has processed the payments as usual. So I clicked through at the time like 7 layers of indirection to get to the actual talk to a person form, and sent in something and got no response for 3 days. This is in the peak season for me, and AdWords not functioning equals I do not eat. So I get a little more agitated, and I send in another thing into the same response form, and it gets dev-nulled again. And then I go to the escalated AdWords support, which is because and I say this very much tongue-in-cheek, internet famous. I can post a blog post and make things kind of awkward. And so somebody who knows somebody, put a bug in the ear of the right person in Mountain View, and they fix things up, and still nobody ever talked to me about it. But if you don't have that support channel, and you're some law firm in Buffalo Grove, Illinois, who is dependent on dependent on AdWords for customer acquisition. You're in total emergency mode, and there's no one to talk to. Recently, there's phone support for everyone. I haven't had the opportunity to use it myself. And I know why Google does this sort of organizational DNA is that you prefer nice scalable algorithmic solutions as opposed to having tens of thousands of people who are standing by waiting for phone calls. Striking a balance such that Google can provide awesome customer-focused support in the parameters of the Google DNA would be a big win for you guys and a big win for many of your customers. Particularly, there's customers that I talk to, why aren't you using Google AdWords? They're like, dude, it's like the people PayPal fired for not having good enough customer contact. They decided to, make a big advertising company. Is anyone here familiar with PayPal's reputation for customer service? You're getting compared disfavorably to PayPal. I mean, that's a failure mode. Okay. So after I got someone in the trial, on the website, how do I convince them to earn the trial? How are we doing time-wise? Yeah. So who's here heard of funnels before? Raise hands. Yay. So funnels is basically you get someone at the lowest possible level of interaction with you, low touch. They came to your website. And then they gradually increase in their business relationship with you. Like maybe, okay, we came to the website, right? Maybe we downloaded a trial. And maybe after downloading the trial, we decided to, pay you money. And each step of those is a funnel. People fall out of the funnel. So funnel analytics is you just graph the funnel, say, all right, there's 10,000 people who start at the landing page, and of them 28%, so 2,600 or so, actually get into the free trial. And these steps happen. And at the end, 15 of them purchase software in August. And so you can, after you have these numbers, you can start making changes to the business. I noticed that only 10% of the people who successfully download a bingo card, one step in this arbitrary funnel, actually go to the purchasing page. What can I do to increase that 10% to 15%, which may be a 50% improvement in my bottom line? Funnels are often multiplicative. So this sounds pretty easy. Why is it hard? Well, not great options for software. This screenshot is from Kissmetrics. I paid Kissmetrics $100 a month for it, basically just so that the screenshot could exist. And I love it because it takes data from a bunch of places that I used to have and puts it all in an easy to understand form for me. Google Analytics has support for funnels. Anyone here use Google Analytics support for funnels? Is anyone here really, really happy with that product? So not too much time in the next 10 minutes, but if you were really happy with that product, I would love to talk to you to hear why. I'm sorry, I don't mean to hash on it, but, well, I do mean to hash on it. So many customers have a more complex business model than just selling bingo cards to elementary school teachers over the internet. They might have, data coming in, people talking to sales guys, a sales cycle lasts 12 months, gets consummated with a purchase order, and gets entered into a billing system, which is totally separate from all the web analytics stuff. You have to tie this together to have a comprehensive view of the funnel. And that's very difficult. Typically requires custom programming work, and very few companies are at that level yet. Kissmetrics is trying to bring that to a broader audience out here. Then often I hear from customers, okay, so hypothetically assuming we get this graph of funnel, what do we do next? And that's an excellent question if you haven't done this before. If you knew nothing about bingo cards, just looking at this graph, would you see something that obviously looks wrong about it or an obvious first step for improvement? And after you've done this for a while, you start to get an idea for what the low-hanging fruit is. But there's no list on the internet. Here's low-hanging fruit you could try in your funnel. So one thing you can do after you have funnels is to A/B test various things on your site to get against each other. If you have a landing page or a front page that attempts to get people into a online trial of a software as a service offering, you could test buttons against each other. A, B, send half the people to A, send half the people to B, see which one has a higher percentage of people actually come through, and perform statistical confidence testing on that. Yay. It's very easy to say and almost easy to implement. wrote up a library for myself in less than a week. You don't have to just do design like that, though. You can test in-application workflows. Like, hypothetically, supposing that there was an internal debate on the AdWords interface, if it was organized like this, it would be easier to use. You could hypothetically put half of the accounts in like workflow A, half of them workflow B, and see which one succeeded more. You can test benefits propositions, test catch copy, test offers, $29.95, but $24.95 for the next 3 days, blah, blah, blah. And if you have business priorities that are competing against each other, like maybe asking for an email address has value to us, but it might decrease the response of people for downloading the free trial, you can use this as a technique to say, okay, how much do they really step on each other's toes? Why is it hard? A/B testing is designed for engineers, but has to get implemented by marketing. Here's my customers. They always complain about it. They don't know what to test. Like, do we start with buttons? Do we start with headlines? Do we start with in-application workflows? What the heck? Don't have testing in the DNA. Like Google, from what I hear from the outside, you guys internally do lots of testing, and I think something like, shades of the color blue is a possible area for testing in Google. But other companies might have, say, a product-oriented culture where testing the marketing site is just not something that occurs to us as a core competence. We've published this. So, I worked with Joel Spolsky's company, Fog Creek. They have a team of 30 engineers, which did one website update, one website update a year, whether the website needed it or not, for 5 years running. And there was nobody whose job it was to actually, check to see if the website was producing business results. Why? Well, our engineers are busy doing the stuff that matters. But isn't, getting your software into the hands of more people stuff that matters for you? That helps them, that helps you. We're like, oh yeah, we might start that. So part of your challenge for AdWords is not just to evangelize use of AdWords as the product, but evangelize the internal Google, test and measure and iterate culture as something that businesses should be adopting more broadly. So one thing that often happens in companies of a particular size is that there's the marketing department that actually wants to run this added stuff because they understand what it means. And there's the engineering department or the web department that actually has to make it happen. And if the engineering department, it's like, okay, we could either do an A/B test of button copy, or we could do fun engineering stuff. They always pick fun engineering stuff. And when marketing says, change request, we need you to make 2 versions of this button, they find ways to say no. And customers repeatedly have this, our own organization is fighting us for this. So it's awesome if you can create a self-help tool for the marketing department that would let them work without much engineering help. If you have one takeaway from this presentation, Google for a visual website optimizer, take a look at their site. It gives you a WYSIWYG interface so that even the marketing droids can, change the stuff on the website without having to talk to the technical people at all or interface with the CMS or all these other scary things that they can't get resources to do. You could buy them. It's a company in India. $100 million will buy that company. Buy them, seriously. It's amazing. And if you compare the experience of using it as a non-technical person with, say, Google Website Optimizer, which is your guys' A/B/multivariate testing product, they are head and tails better from the perspective of the marketing manager at an insurance company in Kansas. And there's cultural reasons why testing would be difficult. If you're so here's a priceless anecdote from Apple. One of my friends went to Apple and said, hey, what kind of A/B testing are you do? And they said, we don't do A/B testing, we do SJ testing. The website is what Steve Jobs says should be on the damn website. So they haven't had much uptake on this. There's many other companies where the highest paid person's opinion or the website is the fiefdom of the marketing group, and nothing will ever appear that does not flatter the interest of the marketing group, even if it's more effective for the business. So you kind of have to, make a cultural change at these other companies to say, listen, you don't have to totally turn into little mini engineers, but numbers are wonderful things that you can use to make your lives easier and better. So here's just some like miscellaneous things I would love to see from Google. So this email marketing we were talking briefly about before is so important for most customers, and yet there's no Google product that does it. I use MailChimp. MailChimp is wonderful, but you guys could offer a much more compelling user experience by tightly integrating that with analytics and or tightly integrating it with AdWords, because almost all savvy AdWords advertisers are sending people to a landing page where you collect their email address so that you can send them email. So you could tightly integrate with that and practically give away the mail for free to sell hundreds of thousands of dollars of ads on it. So I am traditionally skeptical of Facebook and Twitter as marketing things. I think the ROI on them is nowhere near the ROI in SEO or AdWords. But people keep telling me that we're doing it and it works for us. And I ask why. And here's a priceless little anecdote from Ogaki, not a town known for technical savvy. There's this mall. And in the mall, there's a monitor about yay big that aggregates tweets from the mall merchants. And so if you're the haircuttery at the mall and there's no one actually like in getting a haircut, you pull out your cell phone and you type in a tweet at mall. If you're the next person who comes for a haircut, 10% off. And so people come in. And this is a good experience for both the customer and the advertiser. The advertiser has something they understand how to do. They send an SMS message on their phone like they do 100 times a day anyhow. And then they get instant results. A customer walks in the door and says, I saw that tweet and I want that service. You have just done your job in a way that works. Whereas AdWords is like, okay, you can study this for a year and then test for a year, and then at some point several years from now, you will have business results that may or may not be correlated to the effort you put into it. So focus on that ease of use and focus on the emotional component of using the software that says, listen, you did a good job. Your business is succeeding as a result of using our product. Thumbs up for you. And also, the level of sophistication that Google takes for granted about stats and tracking and whatnot. If the world was on that level of sophistication, the world would be a better place. So just like, the manufacturing industry has been so improved by, say, the Toyota method and broadcasting that throughout the industry, the world of your customers and your bottom line would be much better if you radically evangelized like the use of stats and whatnot in their businesses as well. So invest in education, both education about actually like pushing these buttons on the AdWords interface and in making businesses better. Okay, we have some time for questions? Nope. Wrap up. But you might want to give me contact. Here's my contact details. Feel free to talk to me about this stuff at any time. This is like both a job and a hobby for me. I love talking about it, so talk to me anytime. And thanks very much for listening.